live, but we're also on tape. It's smoky outside in Kamloops, but it's beautiful in here now. We've got an AC unit inside state-of-the-art Studio 2 at Lee's Music. That's Christopher Foulds. He's here on his vacation too, so thanks for coming in today.
That's right, always working.
And I'm Marty Hastings at Kamloops Last week. Huge show today. We got Logan Stankoven, NHL Draft pick, and Glenn Hilke.
Glenn Hilke, social advocate who has been in the news lately for the travails surrounding the Loop drop-in center in North Kamloops.
We're going to talk about a lot of things today. We have a lot of issues to talk about, a lot going on in the city. But before we do, we're going to pump our own tires a little bit. This is episode 10, our first milestone episode, you could say.
That's right.
We have over 18,000 views on Facebook, 61 YouTube subscribers. Thanks again to Magic Mike and Bonnie and to Tim Schultz for engineering the monumental blockbuster deal with Lee's Music to use this studio. And also to Bob Duell, our owner, who's going through some health issues right now.
Yeah, Bob Duell, he's recovering. He's great. He's healthy as a horse. He'll live to be 104, as he tells us, and he's doing well at his headquarters down in Naramata.
This is the Kamloops This Week owner, and thought we could give him a laugh where he maybe will just fire us for this, because he actually has a nickname he doesn't know about.
Yeah, his nickname is Basement Bob, and that comes from when he purchased us from Black Press about a decade ago. A question was, where's the head office? And he goes, I run the whole enterprise out of my basement in Naramata. And then he became Basement Bob to the people in the newsroom. And he had a right-hand man named Bob Gill who ran all the financials, and he became Sideshow Bob in the newsroom. And they probably don't know that until right now. Yeah,
they don't know that. So if we're off the air next week, it could be because of this revealing of the nicknames. I think he'll be okay with it. That's on the screen right now. It's your son and daughter.
That's
Addie and
Veronica, and that's Atticus, and that was taken a long time ago. She's now 22 and he's 20. And that's probably when we were hanging out, as we did a lot at Riverside Park, maybe on one of my, this looks like a festival of some kind there.
I put it up today just because you're on vacation. Any highlights or best vacation you've ever had?
Oh, there's been a lot. A couple years ago, I went to Italy, went to London, England. Some of the best vacations are the most mundane ones. Like when I took a week off here and there when they were growing up, we would just go down to the park and we would play football and have a picnic, and it was just the best times were when they were young and we were just hanging out in the park for sure.
Vacations I brought up also for a reason, because I brought my new best friend Herman Hothi on one. Let's check this commercial out right now. Eyes on the camera. Okay, buddy? Let's go. Marty Hastings here outside New Leaf Produce Market with my new best Herman. Look at the camera, pal. Stay on your feet. Herman is paying us to do this commercial, but he said this. He said, Marty, on one condition. I do not want to be in the commercial. And I said, Herman, that is complete and total hogwash. You will be in the commercial. Because I won't let him be sheepish. Not when all of his produce is edible art, and not when it's a hyper-local labor of love from his family farm, Heffley Farms. And not when he sources seasonal product from more than 40 of the best regional suppliers, like Newfeld Farms in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I had to see it for myself. Nothing like a good road trip. In you get, Herman. Ma, yeah, but let's go. Get me some sour keys, pal. No peeking, Herman. Oh. Help my goodness, Steve. Are these strawberries ever good?
You're quiet today, Herman. Want some corn?
Have a bite, Herm. Oh, and yes, it's true. A lot of people have asked me. They say, Marty, is he awkward on camera? I say, you're darn right he is. But this is a quality man who deals only in quality produce, and he has to be seen. Right, Herm? Okay, bud, last chance to make the catch. Let's go. Embarrassing.
You're going to hurt Herman.
Chris, you can take a look at our hall. What do you think of the hall today?
I think it's better than last week's. Actually, it looks well. It's more diverse than last week's. We got my favorite. One of my favorites for a salad is the red cabbage, and the corn on the cob looks very, very good. So
I picked it up this morning, fresh from New Leaf Produce Market. It's early Red Haven peaches. Those are from Winfield. Corn from Abbey. Oliver-grown field tomatoes, Oliver-grown jalapenos, which I might take for myself. Eggplant, Heffley grown Walla Walla onions, red cabbage from Oliver, and green cabbage from Heffley. So you can just subscribe to us, Kamloops Last Week, and send me an email at klw@kamloopsthisweek.com to enter to win, and this could be yours. You can pick it up today at Kamloops This Week, or tomorrow I'll be there to hand it over to you. Olympics. Let's talk about the Olympics. We've got Matt Berger on the screen, Catherine Pendrell, but you wanted to talk a bit about Gord Perrin.
yeah, these are Kamloops athletes who have finished at the Olympics, and ongoing right now is Gord Perrin. He's not a Kamloops resident per se, but he played a number of years for the True Wolfpack volleyball team, and he's the captain of the Canadian men's national volleyball team.
Yeah, Gord Perrin, I don't think he really moves the needle too much in this town, unfortunately. He's from Creston. He spent some really good years here at TRU, but it's one of those things you and I were talking about outside that Catherine Pendrell's from New Brunswick, but she lives in Kamloops.
She came to Kamloops, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Berger grew up in Kamloops, but he doesn't live here anymore.
California, yeah, that's right.
So what do you consider, a Kamloops Olympian?
It's hard to say because I came here from Abbotsford and you came here from South Surrey. So it's hard to say. A Kamloops Olympian could be anyone who grew up formative years here, or maybe an Olympian is someone who moved here but became good at their sport through the coaching here.
I thought this was something we could talk about as well. I got ripped pretty good online for posting an update after Matt Berger's performance at the Olympics. The headline was "Berger struggles in Olympics debut," which I thought was a fairly fair headline.
It's an accurate representation of what happened. He himself would say, I struggled. He was looking to place very well, and he probably had one of the worst outings of his professional career, and it happens.
It's not an indictment of him as a person, as him as a skateboarder. I wasn't taking a shot at him. He did an amazing thing just getting to the Olympics, which we covered. And I just think that even not just with sports, but in other things, people sometimes think we have to be cheerleaders.
Yeah, that's right, and we don't. And a lot of people say, well, you're a partner in this. Well, sometimes on the advertising side, the newspaper might be a partner, but when we're reporting on social issues or crime or politics, we can't be a partner. We have to just be objective. And sometimes the stories are good, and sometimes the stories aren't so good. And what dictates that is the narrative of the story. In this case, it's factual to say he had a tough day at the Olympics. As you mentioned, the people who were all over you on that maybe didn't see the numerous stories leading up to there where we're profiling the athletes, in which it's very positive coverage.
One lady pretty much called for me to jump off the Red Bridge. I think she wanted my scalp. She wanted you to fire me, actually.
That's right, and I almost did, but I thought better of it.
Let's talk about Catherine Pendrell as well. This is a really cool story.
Yep, that is, and I think she graces the front page of our newspaper on today, July 28th, because this was her swan song in the Olympics, and she finished, I think, 18th in the mountain bike. She was bronze medal last time around, I think, in the last
Rio.
Olympics. And what's amazing about this, people who probably know this reading your stories, is that she performed, 6 months?
6 months.
After giving birth,
yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And she managed to compete at a world-class level at age 40?
Age 40.
6 months after birth. To me, that's a gold medal performance.
That was the story. No matter how she did, it was going to be cool that she just got here. She qualified. And also the 18th place, that doesn't sound like that good, but she exceeded expectations.
That's right.
4 World Cup events this season, never placed above 20th. So she rose up, she brought her game and finished 18th, which was an amazing performance. And watching her cross the finish line, smiling and waving, was a great moment for the city.
In the past few months, I've been walking my dog, in the spring especially, up and down Schubert Drive sometimes to give us a little different scenery. And I can't tell you how many times I saw Catherine Pendrell just racing by, or as I'm coming out of Bachelor, she's coming off the hill. Like, she was going everywhere. And this was just a couple months after giving birth.
Yeah, that's your penthouse suite up there in Bachelor.
That's
I
right.
actually,
Yeah.
in my humble abode at Summit Drive, I see her going up Summit Drive too. So you've probably seen Catherine Pendrell
everywhere.
riding in the city somewhere.
People have seen her. Maybe they don't know that they've seen her, but they've seen her.
It is sad to think that her career is coming to an end now. This will be her last season. She has 4 major events left, and then she'll be done. So what a fantastic ambassador for the city. Logan Stankoven, he may someday be in the Olympics. Let's meet him in this next segment, which is called The Tattle of Hastings. It was an amazing weekend for Kamloops hockey. Logan Stankoven, drafted by the Dallas Stars. His longtime childhood buddy Tyson Galloway, drafted by the St. Louis Blues, and 2 Kamloops Blazers going in the NHL draft as well.
That's right. Tyson Galloway actually is the son of Mrs. Galloway, who used to be one of my kids' teachers. And Logan Stankoven, a few years ago when he was with the Thompson Blazers, they had a midget team. They had a fundraising dinner. A friend of ours' kid was also on the team, and he actually was one of the Blazers to serve us as dinner. And
Logan was?
Yes, and he was one of the nicest kids I've ever seen.
He was hoping to go in the first round. Yep. And NHL.com had a laptop set up in there so he can go live internationally. That was what he was hoping for. He had all the 32 NHL hats on his table. The whole first round goes by and he doesn't get drafted. That was a big snub. So I sat down with him and I asked him about that.
I was a little bit disappointed. You know, I had a little bit of family over that night as well, just in case, you know, I was drafted in round 1, but obviously I think it was just tough to come out and see all my family. You know, they know how much hard work I put in, and you know, I mean, obviously things aren't going to go your way every time, but you know, I think the draft is just a number and it matters what you do after. So
this is far from the first time that you've been slighted or snubbed or told you're too small. So how do you bottle this up and move forward?
Just motivation. It keeps me hungry and makes me want to work even harder and love the game so much more. You know, I already more than I do. It just makes me wanting to. Sorry, my phone went off there.
Phone's blowing up lately, man. I get it.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. Just basically makes me want to, you know, work so much harder and you know, whether it's staying on the ice after practices or shooting even more pucks than I do. You know, I'm always going to keep that in the back of my mind and make sure that, hey, you know, I'm not going to be told no or, you know, I guess told that I can't do it or make it to the NHL, because, you know, I know I can, as long as I put in the work and stay focused, and I'm not going to let my size hold me back from anything.
Yeah, anything else you wanted to add on Logan?
No, just the fact that, Bob McKenzie, I think, had him 27th ranked in the first round. And I know some people, even Logan himself has said, you know, maybe people said maybe my size has something to do with it. And that just drives me nuts, because the NHL is no longer this huge behemoth league anymore. If you look at the legion of players, Marty St. Louis, Crawford, Caulfield, even back to Stevie Sullivan, Cliff Ronning back in the day, it doesn't matter. He's big enough to play in the NHL. He's good enough to play in the NHL.
And this is actually probably a good thing for the Kamloops Blazers, because he's fired up. He's motivated. Yeah. You can tell from that interview that he wants to prove a lot of people wrong, and that's going to manifest itself at the Sandman Center this upcoming season. Speaking of the Sandman Center, Caden Bankier and Josh Pillar, both Kamloops Blazers. Bankier's from Cloverdale, not too far from my hometown of White Rock, and Josh Pillar's from Warman, Saskatchewan. They have a really cool story. You can read about that at KamloopsThisWeek.com. They've just kind of had this intertwined hockey story. Les and Val Davidson, that's who they room with in Valley View, but we're going to head downtown right now. It's time for your segment, Above the Fold. Let's start with the sign story.
Yeah, the sign story came about actually from Tim Schultz, our fearless leader. He was getting his haircut. He had a week off, and he was getting his haircut at the Continental Barbershop, a very well-known establishment downtown. And he sent me a photo and a text to say something's going on with the owner of the Continental. She had her window busted. A bunch of businesses had their window busted on Canada Day just after midnight. And she had to put up a plywood to protect the business.
On the outside, right?
Well, on the outside, waiting for the window to be replaced. It was going to take 2 weeks because everything's backed up. And on that piece of plywood, she wrote a sign of gratitude. She thanked the people who helped catch the guy who broke the window, and she urged people to be aware, report crime, and just we're in this together. It wasn't a vigilante message. It was a message of gratitude and to tell people, let's report crime to the police. Anyway, someone complained. Bylaws showed up. Community services officer, they're called now. She says they told her that she had to either paint it over, remove the sign, or possibly face a fine. She said, I'll take the fine, I'm not taking it down. It became a pretty big story. I wrote the story up. Other media also reported on it after that.
Bylaws just doing their job here, though, right? Like the plywood that's the issue, is you can't have plywood covering the window?
No, you can have plywood cover the window, but you can't write it right on it because that becomes a sign bylaw now.
Okay.
And then you have to get permission because under the sign bylaw, I think it's section 700, it says, you have to get approval because it becomes a sign because of its material. And I asked the manager of the bylaws division, I said, well, what if her daughter or son wanted to draw a nice picture of a cat there? Well, that would kind of under the mural bylaw. You'd have to go and get permission from the mural committee. It got really, really bizarre, really dumb. In the end, it worked out because she got the window fixed last week. But in the meantime, she put another sign behind the window, the exact same wording, but on a piece of paper, which is okay. It's not against the sign bylaw. And it says the same thing. It says, thanks to my people and report crime, and let's try to keep the downtown from getting too out of control.
And it's kind of mushroomed a bit, though, people showing support with signs of their own.
Yeah, many other businesses started by Bill Sanesh at Bikini Bill's, the long-standing tanning place just a few blocks away. He put a plywood sign in his window, but it was behind the window. It wasn't in place of the window, so it was okay legally. And he said, I support Continental Barbershop, and he's now selling those signs to other businesses if they want to do this, sort of like take this. The idea was, they get there's rules, but as she told me, she was on the phone talking to me while I was interviewing her. She goes, I'm sitting here cleaning up feces in the front of my building. I have someone panhandling nearby here. Not that she's insensitive, but she's saying, I'm getting called out because of a bylaw infraction. I look around and I see a dozen right now, and they're not doing anything about it.
And we should, I guess, be clear that this is not a bylaws, like we're not ripping the bylaws.
Not at all.
Right? They're just doing their
no.
thing.
And like Tammy Blundell, the manager, she was really clear in explaining it to me. There's a law, there's a bylaw. The city council makes laws. They're called bylaws. And when there's a complaint, they have to respond to the complaint. And as Tammy Blundell so ably explained in my story, they have discretion when they're out looking at stuff and they're not getting called. They'll see something in the park, they'll see someone doing something, they can talk to them and work it out and say, please, do this. But when they get a complaint, they're responsible to the complainant and they're responsible to the person being complained about. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very fine line what they have to do. So it's not ripping on bylaws at all. Maybe it goes back to the city council as how they counsel bylaws, how to respond to things or how they write the bylaws. But it's not the bylaw officer, community services officer. They're doing their job exactly. And apparently she never got fined. And everything is fine now.
It does tie into what we've talked about a lot, just the general upswell of anger in the city about crime in general. And that's not just the North Shore, that's downtown too.
Downtown is Valley View, it's West Side, it's basically everywhere. And they call it, it's so-called petty crime, but it's only petty if it doesn't happen to you. If you have a kid and he has his bike stolen and he worked all summer to save up for it, it may be a petty crime on the stats, but to him it's devastating. So yeah, there's crime everywhere. We talked about this ad nauseum. There's crime everywhere, and where it stems from, you can go down the list. It's mental health issues, it's addictions, it's homelessness. It's also just there's assholes out there, and they're gonna take advantage of people. And the solution, who knows?
Smoke and the fires. Let's talk about that. BC Lions practice, that just came down this morning, canceled today, but much more important things in sports going on. Smoke and the fires, what's the latest?
Smoke in the fires, it's so smoky in Kamloops that when it gets to a 10, which is danger level, we're kind of breathing a sigh of relief because it's been at 10 plus before that. It's bad out there, and most of the smoke this morning, the BC Wildlife Service, July 28th, they said it's from the White Rock Lake fire, which is just southwest, I think, of Kamloops, southeast of Kamloops by Westwold. It's growing and it's burning in a couple of different directions, and it's because it's so hot and the winds, it's really creating a pall of smoke. You might have seen it this week. It looked like a huge mushroom cloud over Kamloops, and there's ash falling. This morning coming to the studio, there's ash falling. I'm used to it now. When it first happened, it was bizarre, but now it's like, okay, it's ash falling. And Kamloops, because we're in the valley where we are, we have it worse than most other places.
Barnhartvale has an evacuation alert?
Yeah, it's not in the city. It's not in the city limits. Barnhartvale goes way out past the city. So the city made a point yesterday of pointing out in our story and online that the city limits are not in any way affected by this fire yet. Barnhartvale, the geographical area, which is still in the electoral area of grasslands of the TNRD, yeah, they have an alert, but it's not in the city at all.
That is a picture of the loop. That's why that's up on the screen, and it leads into our next subject. But before we flip to that next segment, let's talk about Glenn Hilke for a little bit.
And Glenn Hilke is going to be our guest here, and Glenn Hilke is one of the driving forces behind the creation of the Loop Drop-In Center on North Kamloops, which has been in the news. It just closed down, and it existed to help the homeless and other people who need help with referring them the services, giving them meals is the primary one. Talking to them, just helping them out, whatever they can do. It's been controversial, and we'll talk to him why that is.
All right, let's meet Glenn in this week.
You have been in the news via the Loop Drop-In Center, and I think anyone who's picked up a newspaper or listened to the radio or caught any kind of TV news will know what we're talking about. But how about the Loop Drop-In Center was a center in the North Kamloops to help not only the homeless, but people in need. As you mentioned to me, there'd be some seniors who have homes, but they need help maybe getting bus tickets. Maybe they need help getting some references to social agencies. And it operated at Tranquil and U, and it became the subject of a lot of complaints. How about you give us now the status of the Loop, because we're hearing conflicting ideas whether it's closed down permanently or whether it's just closed temporarily. Tell us what the status of the Loop and, more importantly, the COVID meal train is from that location.
Sure. So the Loop isn't closed down at all.
Okay.
We're operating 7 days a week. The only change right now is that the city has kindly asked us to not serve food to people outside the building or inside the building. So what does that mean? It basically means that 3 meals a day that were literally on the table, like you said, for people of all backgrounds and all ages, not just people who are homeless or people with chronic substance use issues, are being denied basically that food security access. So the meal train, which started prior to the Loop even opening, the meal train is continuing to run out of the Interior Health Certified Kitchen. And so we're producing now 3 meals a day as opposed to 2, because with the restrictions of not being able to serve in or outside the Loop, that means that a supper that we were doing at the Loop is now off the table, which means that there's no supper at all for people on the North Shore. They would have to make it down to the Mustard Seed between 5 and 6 p.m. If they needed to make ends meet with a bite to eat.
From what we understood, what we heard from the mayor, from some of the business owners out there, as you know, from NSBIA, is that what was getting people's ire or getting people kind of uncomfortable was some open drug use, some garbage being strewn about, and just, I guess, the appearance didn't kind of jarred people a bit. How is that going to change the North Shore now that the Loop does not have the gathering place aspect to it?
Well, it's just going to redisperse people all around town, which we've already seen. I mean, somebody sent me a picture today of a couple of people camped out outside the Ask Wellness building on Trunk Hill Road. I mean, back in May, we were asked by the NSBIA and the city. And so we're talking about, businesses that were complaining to the NSBIA, their members saying, we need some help here, whether it's behind Tim Hortons or behind Joshua Knack's place, the Red Beard, that whole strip. They said to us, can you help get folks away from the back of these businesses, bring them to your place? And we did. And that's when we extended our hours in May on a 2-month pilot project to get more people coming to the Loop. And they came in droves because it was at that moment when the rivers were rising and bylaws were telling people they could no longer stay along the river because it was not safe. So our numbers literally doubled overnight between these two things, the pilot project and the rivers rising. And of course, when people come, they come as they are. They come with their belongings. They come with their addictions. They come with their lifestyle. And so, all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, where did all these people come from? Look at all these people. Look at them and all their stuff, which unfortunately, people refer to as garbage. I mean, these are people's personal belongings, everything they own in life. And, From there, the NSBIA got cold feet. 2 weeks into the pilot project, they pulled the plug in terms of their support. And then, everything went downhill from there. So it's obvious that one little loop on the North Shore is not enough for the cohort of people that are in need of help.
Glenn, what do you think the general perception of the public is of the loop, and how do you think the media coverage has affected it?
For every complaint, there's 10 supports that we get. But like you said, it's a complaint-based system. So I've spoken to Tammy Blundell and others. People could call Tammy all day long saying, we support the loop, we love the loop, we want to see it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't figure into the algorithm. It's complaint-based, and that's what then begins the viral spreading of the vitriol that we're seeing on social media. So, that's what we're locked into right now, unfortunately. And it just feeds on itself, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And of course, with any movement that needs to find an object to voice their anger and their opposition, they need to find, quote unquote, the other. And the loop is the other. And the other is weak, meaning that the people that use the loop, they're not political election donors. Maybe they vote, maybe they don't vote. They're poor people. They're people that don't have connections. And so it's easy to target them. It's easy to make them the focus and the object of everything that's wrong. And so the loop then becomes, the punching bag for everything that's going wrong, not just on the North Shore, but everything in the city. And then, of course, because myself as the spokesperson for the organization, mandated to carry out our mission, I have to speak on behalf of the people that are in this weak position to try and help the public understand, like, they're not all your thieves. They're not all your criminals. You can't just paint this whole community with a single brushstroke. And then, therefore, I become the villain, which, I have no problem with. I sleep fine. I enjoy what I do. It's a challenge, but I know that we are working to try to make this community better. And we have been successful in identifying that there is a huge need for more services, not just on the North Shore, but citywide.
Let's on that note, you said, you've taken the task, and this is a volunteer thing where you're trying to help these people. You're originally from Brooklyn, correct?
Correct.
And then you spent time in Montreal, and then you came out to Kamloops. Why do you care so much? Why do you invest so much? I can see you're getting emotional here. What is it that drives you to do this when most people would say, it's too much, I can't handle it?
That's a good question. I've been asked that question before. There's two ways that I can answer it. So you mentioned Brooklyn. So let me start with that short answer. Yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn I'm 68 years old. So I grew up in Brooklyn in the 50s, the early 60s. It was a neighborhood, right? Everything took place within a few square blocks. It was a community, school, church, stores, little businesses, friends, family, everything happened. We were outside all the time. We slept outside at times. It was a great experience. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was community. And that's what drives me, is creating community. And so people think that I am trying to, or the loop is trying to destroy community. No, the people that use the loop are what we would call an intentional community. We brought people together with various needs from various backgrounds, and they share something in common. So they become this intentional community. The other answer to your question, why do this? And I can't remember who said this. Maybe it was Gandhi. I don't know. But it was a simple quote. If you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service to others. And so that's how I found myself. And so I've been doing this work for over 40 years. And sometimes I volunteer, sometimes I'm paid. most of the time since I've come here to Kamloops, I've worked as a full-time volunteer. So I'm in a fortunate position that I can do that.
Do you also understand the concerns of the business owners in that area who maybe have had the vandalism, who have seen the open drug use and have experienced what they would consider garbage? I mean, do you also understand their plight?
Completely. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I completely understand, I empathize, I agree, I concur with them. But we need to find some common ground here. I've met with the Jamaica Kitchen. I obviously talk to the NSBIA on a regular basis, not recently, they're not interested. But we've talked to the neighbors that own homes across the street from us. We understand the challenges. And let me tell you, each and every day that the Loop was open, in its initial profile of serving people at the Loop, we spoke to people about that. We explained to them clearly, like this, every day. Do you like this place? Are you connected to this place? Do you need this place? If so, you gotta get your act together. You have to understand that there are rules here. You have to understand that people are watching this place. People are pissed off at this place. And you have to do your utmost to participate in making sure that this place runs like it's supposed to run. And it's not just up to the staff and volunteers to do that. If you need this place, you need to participate. So we did this every day. As far as garbage goes, I can't tell you how much time every day I spent on waste management at the Loop. I mean, the NSBIA back in the good days gave us 4 garbage cans, and then we added 4 more from the city. So we literally had 8 garbage cans that we were spreading around, not just on our property, but in the back in the lanes to collect garbage. And we were constantly keeping the place clean. So,
all right, Glenn, anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, I do. You guys were talking about fines earlier. I mean, our landlord, obviously the property is deemed a nuisance property. Last Thursday, a vigilante showed up prior to us opening. The timing doesn't matter though. Showed up with a baseball bat and started assaulting our staff volunteers and the people that had already arrived at the Loop waiting for it to open.
What type
this
of
was
assault?
A huge commotion.
What type of assault was it? Like they actually physically beat them?
Yes, he came, he pushed people, he hit people, he burst into our building because our custodian was out there cleaning up and the door was open behind him. And he just came running in screaming that he's going to shut this place down. He's going to kill people. He's going to put people in jail. And this was all before, any bylaws or RCMP showed up. But the video that we have of that, seems to show that this was some kind of like consensual, knockdown, drag out fist fight in the community because it's the Loop. Mm-hmm. And that's just not true. And we are going to legally challenge a $500 fine that was sent to our landlord because the property was already deemed a nuisance property. And that's always the next step. After you're labeled that, you start to get fines. So, this is, like you were saying, like bylaws need to be looked at. Nuisance property status needs to be looked at. But, the Loop cannot be responsible for the entire behaviors of people in our city that are angry, that are criminal, that are doing illegal things. The RCMP and bylaws just let that guy walk.
One last thing here. A few elections ago, you ran for city council. Are you thinking about doing it again to enact these changes you want to see changed?
I'd never run for city council again. There's too many that run. It's always more fun to run for the mayor.
All right.
We'll get back to you before October 22.
The future mayor of Kamloops, Glenn Hilke. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, the benevolent villain from Brooklyn, Glenn Hilke.
Oh, I like that. Benevolent villain of Brooklyn. I like it. Could be like a wrestling character.
Yeah. What did you think of that?
Glenn Hilke is an extremely passionate guy, and he's a very polarizing guy, and he'll admit it. And I think that a lot of what he says, you gotta sort of think about what he says, because obviously he's not doing this for any profit. He's doing this because he honestly cares about these people. these people that many people look down on and just want them off the street. It's more like out of sight, out of mind to a lot of people, where he's saying, hey, they're here already just because they're congregating at the Loop. And the Loop is, let's say they're not there anymore, they're still here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can guarantee you we're going to have some blowback from others in the community who are going to take issue with some of the things that Glenn said, and
Sure.
we'll pay attention to that as well. But for now, we're going to say goodbye. I want to thank, again, Magic Mike Miltimore. He brings in the AC unit, so we're not sweaty messes. We got Bonnie hitting buttons. There she is, putting the hands up for us and trying to make us look good every single week. Episode 10, it's a milestone episode. Title sponsors, we've had Tara Holmes.
Tara Holmes, Holmes is the heart. What was it?
Oh boy, Holmes is where the heart is. Personalized matchmaking.
On that note, Tara Holmes might not notice this, but she's married to the nicest guy in Kamloops, Chris LaRouche. He's actually won an award for that. So just so you know.
I don't know why he's with her.
Well, that's
an
the mystery.
matchup.
Yes, absolutely.
We also have New Leaf Produce Market and
Herman,
my new best friend right here, Herman Hothi. We couldn't do it without you, pal. Again, he's still trying to find his words. Maybe one of these days we'll get him the speaking part. Scott Finley and the Grand Ones for the music. We appreciate you. Again, if you want to join the Last Week clique, there's still room to be an advertiser. Email me, klw@kamloopsthisweek.com. And we'll see you last week.